If Billy Napier keeps this up, get ready to hear Lane Kiffin, head coach of the Florida Gators.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth: realignment, coaching carousel. Yeah, see how I paused there? That was intentional. All that and so much more. Getting you ready for every single week. What a great weekend of college football it was. This episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy, which fixes tired fast. Zero sugar, convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com, use promo code LOCKEDONCFB, and you get 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th. On one order, cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Oregon and Michigan. Contenders in the Big Ten certainly didn't look like it. We'll talk about that later. And Nebraska looked the part in week one. We'll just leave it there. They were playing UTEP, and I have thoughts on the Cornhuskers. But I want to start with Lane Kiffin, because I think Lane Kiffin's going to have a good year with Ole Miss. I think he's going to lead Ole Miss to a 10-win season. I think he's going to get them into the college football playoff. We'll see how I feel going into that playoff about the Rebels. I love their offseason. I like their team a lot. And then eventually he'll become the head coach of the Florida Gators. Now, Spencer, how could you be saying such a thing? Haven't you said in the past, Spencer, that Billy Napier is going to survive the season? Yes, that has been my general sentiment, barring a disaster. Saturday was embarrassing. Those aren't my words. Those are Billy Napier's words. Though I'm not going to sit here and disagree with him because, well, that wasn't great. I picked Florida to win the game because I thought they were capable. And I think Florida can play better than they did Saturday against Miami and will throughout the course of this year. We'll see what happens when Texas A&M comes to town in a couple of weeks. That should be an exciting matchup. But if Billy Napier doesn't just keep stacking losses, which we know are going to pile up, there's no expectation for Billy Napier to be a playoff team or an SEC title contender this year. But it's not like it's year two. It's not like it's year one. This is year three. This is year three, and it feels like you're going away from the standard that Dan Mullen set, that Florida decided, no, this isn't good enough, and Billy Napier is not going in the right direction. The recruiting is there. The on-field performance is not. I'm not saying that Lane Kiffin is a lock to go be the Florida head coach. If Billy Napier is relieved of his duties, though, it'd be expensive, but if they were to do it, how's Lane Kiffin not at the top of the list? I'll explain why it makes sense for Lane Kiffin in just a moment, but the way that we would get there is if Billy Napier continues to stack up performances like the one we saw on Saturday. It's not just that he lost the game, it's that Florida was routed. It's that Miami was decisively the better team on their home field. I'm not even going to talk a lot about the 34-game home opener win streak that was ended, or that it was one of the worst losses in the history of the Swamp. It's that's a team that you have recruited similarly to over the last couple of years. That's a team that people like myself and others said, oh, Florida can go beat this team, and you didn't even look like you belonged. Early on, they were fighting around, but once Miami threw the pick, Cam Ward got a little gunslinger, threw an interception, and then Florida had to settle for a field goal. That's when I felt, boy, this could really be Miami's day. And it was Miami's day across the board. They were way better. So if Texas A&M comes into town in a couple weeks and beats the brakes off of Florida again, and then they play the back half of their schedule and they're not competitive in any of those games, forget winning those games. If they're not competitive in those, Florida might decide to make a change. Now, Billy Napier has the opportunity to save his job because he is still owed a sizable portion of his contract, tens of millions of dollars. And I mean, even SEC schools don't pay tens of millions of dollars for a coach to go away. Wink for those listening on podcasts, because Jimbo Fisher is getting $75 million from Texas A&M. Why? Because it got so bad. If Jimbo Fisher had an average season, if they had just been okay, would he have kept his job? Probably. He might have been given another year, less in the buyout, see if he turns things around. But it didn't go well. It got to a point where it was so bad, they had to make a change. Well, this is one performance that if you continue to stack them up down there in Gainesville, the boosters at Florida might say, all right, this is so bad, we've got to make a change. On the flip side of the coin, would it make sense for Lane Kiffin? Absolutely. Is Florida a higher profile job than Ole Miss? 100%. Yet, who's a better team right now? Does he have the proven coaching track record in this conference? Yes. Does he have a history in the state of Florida? Yes. Is Ole Miss seen by many as a window program that has a great shot in a window right now? Yes. After this year, probably not going to be as good. Doesn't mean you couldn't go and be the transfer portal king that some have dubbed him in the past. He has done very well in the transfer portal, brought in the number one class in the 2024 cycle. If he goes and does that again, yeah, Ole Miss can be really good again. You can win at Ole Miss. You can compete for an SEC championship. Can you win one? Not sure. Not sure. That remains to be seen. That's why this is such a fun year for Ole Miss and the Rebels and everybody in Oxford, because this is the best Lane Kiffin team that he has had since he got there. But he's been there for an extended period of time, so there'd be no stigma of, oh, he's just bouncing around looking for this, that, or the other job. He'd have the proven track record. And would you take the Florida job over the Ole Miss job? Of course you would. Of course you would. So could it make sense for Lane Kiffin to go give it his biggest swing this year with Ole Miss, make a push to the playoff, maybe win a game or two, and then at the end of the season, if Florida, implodes, if they continue to have performances like the one on Saturday, and they end up having a coaching vacancy, how do you not call Lane Kiffin? How do you not call Lane Kiffin? Would it be expensive? Yeah, well, guess what? Mike Elko was expensive. It didn't work out for Mike Elko in game one. In the long run, I suspect that it will, because I think he's a really good coach and you have everything you need to win at Texas A&M. He just has to get everything running smoothly. It wasn't very smooth on Saturday. It was choppy. It was a slugfest. It was a great game. And they were incredibly competitive and capable of winning a game against a team that has playoff and national title aspirations in Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's a lock to the playoff after winning that game. But I digress. Lane Kiffin to Florida. Get used to hearing it. Because every time Ole Miss racks up wins, if they go into LSU and win again this year, if they start racking up big wins, and they make their best swing at it, and they push for an SEC championship, and they push for a national championship, they win 10 plus games. If they do all of that, the profile is going to be there. And Lane Kiffin might see what a lot of other coaches have seen, which is, you know what? I've done all I can here. Like Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. If Brian Kelly had stayed at Notre Dame, they'd still be really good. They would have won a bunch of games in the last several years. But eventually you might say, you know what? We've just reached an end point, and I've done all I can do here, and I need to go somewhere where I feel like the ceiling is higher. And Brian Kelly, I think, has that at LSU. Hasn't hit that ceiling just yet, but certainly LSU is a higher profile or a higher ceiling program than is Notre Dame. And Florida is higher than Ole Miss. So I think it can make plenty of sense for Lane Kiffin. He's put his name out there for other big jobs before. He certainly would again. And that's why Florida is the most interesting coaching vacancy to watch in the carousel as the season progresses. And remember, I want to make this point very, very clearly. It's not just about the record. It's how that record comes about. If Texas A&M embarrasses you, if Florida State runs you off the field and you don't win any of those back half of the season games, if you're 4-8 and those 8 losses are by an average of 25 points, Florida might change their mind and say, nah, this isn't acceptable anymore. We need to make a change. Let me know your thoughts in YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @SMcLaughlinCFB. That's the handle. A couple of Big Ten title contenders really underwhelmed in week one. One more so than the other. Is all hope lost for Oregon and Michigan? I don't think so. Not entirely anyway. That's coming up next. Coming up right now, 5-hour energy. Are you tired after lunch? I bet you are, because research shows that 70% of us hit the wall after lunch. Let a 5-hour energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. 5-hour energy fixes tired fast. That's the whole idea. And they have everything that you want in an energy boost. They have zero sugar, convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5-Hour Energy website has flavors galore. It is great. Watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone, so try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5, and then hourenergy.com, and get some 5-Hour Energy, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to get 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go get the energy boost you need. That's 5hourenergy.com today. So coming into the season, 2 of the top 4 teams in the preseason odds market to win the Big Ten were Oregon and Michigan. And neither one looked very good on Saturday. Not all hope is lost, but there needs to be some improvement, adjustment over the course of the season, which can happen. I'll talk about that in just a moment, because you don't really have to go very far back into the archives of the Jedi Order, of college football, and figure out who has not played great early in the year and then had a great finish to the season. But Michigan, late in the game, at home against Fresno State, who's a good Mountain West team, that score was 16-10. The final score was 30-10. The defense eventually clinched it. Quarterback play, pretty underwhelming for the Wolverines. That was our question coming into the year, because Sherrone Moore didn't name a starting quarterback, of course. And I don't know. Maybe those guys will improve. Maybe one guy will separate himself. But the early returns wasn't very strong. And if you thought that was bad, Oregon was much worse. And I mean much worse. So, Oregon, for those who missed the game, played Idaho. Now, there was a time when Idaho was an FBS school. They have a win in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, which is perfect and beautiful when you're talking about the, what's the word I'm looking for? Americana of college football. Idaho, famous Idaho Potato Bowl, W. They've won that once upon a time. Those days are behind them because they play at the FCS level. And Oregon went into Saturday's contest as a more than 40-point favorite against the Vandals. And last year, Oregon played a team on that field from the same conference Idaho's currently in, the Big Sky, and beat them 81-7. And so everyone figured, well, Bo Nix out, Dylan Gabriel in, no problem. Maybe won't be exactly the same, but I mean, come on, that's going to go great. Final score 24-14. Oregon needed, for those who did not see the game, a 4th and 7 coming down the stretch in the fourth quarter with 5:40 to go. They draw Idaho offsides, pick up a 4th and 2, get a touchdown, clinch the game. That's what they needed against an FCS school. This is not Colorado playing North Dakota State, where Colorado's fighting to be a bowl team. North Dakota State is a preseason number 2 nationally in the FCS ranks. Idaho, good program right now. Jason Eck, probably going to be a Power 4 or Group of 5 head coach coming to a school near you. So just keep that name in your memory banks. In no world should this game have been even close. And Autzen Stadium, I was there in the press box, it had to roar to life in the fourth quarter. They had to bring that Ohio State kind of juice to help their defense because they needed big stops. And it started out all fine. A stop for Oregon on defense, a touchdown, a stop, and then all of a sudden Idaho flipped a switch and Oregon turned a switch off and played 4 truly embarrassing quarters of football. It was bad. The starters played the entire game. Wasn't good. Oregon should have won that game by 30, 40 points. They didn't. It was ugly. Offensive line play, huge issue. They allowed 5 sacks all of last season. They allowed 3 in the first half, including a fumble or a strip sack of Dylan Gabriel that led to a fumble recovery by Idaho. They did that in the first half. Idaho, not Boise State, not Oregon State, not Ohio State, not Washington, not Michigan. No, Idaho. That has to change dramatically. Michigan's got to be more dynamic on offense and figure out the quarterback position. Oregon has to figure out the offensive line. Here's the silver lining and why I don't think the season for these two teams is automatically over because of a bad week 1 showing that ended up resulting in a win. Both teams have plenty of chances, most notably Michigan's upcoming game with Texas at the Big House this week. That is College game day. I think justifiably so. They will have plenty of chances to make everybody, by the end of the year, forget these games happen. Or you look back and go, how did this team play down to that level? Oregon's in the Big Ten title game. How'd they let Idaho hang around with them? Michigan went 10-2. How did they let Michigan's? What if Michigan beats Texas? You're going to look back and go, wait a minute. Fresno State was just in there pushing them. Fresno State's in the same conference as Colorado State, and Colorado State lost to Texas 52-0. College football doesn't always make sense. Does not always make sense. But those questions have to be answered. They have to be answered. And if they're not, you will not see Oregon in the playoff. You will not see Michigan in the playoff or in the Big Ten championship game. It'll be Ohio State and it'll be Penn State, and we'll see who else can rise to the top of the conference because those teams did not impress in week 1. The good news is twofold for those fan bases. Number 1, it's week 1. Number 2, it was a win. It was a win. There's a survive and advance component. This is not college basketball. That's Locked On College Football for those watching on YouTube that you can see the little logo for over there that the network makes for me, which I'm very appreciative of because I think it looks great. There is a feeling of, boy, you got it out of the way. Is that the dud game? So back to the remark I made earlier. Last year, Alabama, granted in horrible weather conditions. These are not one-to-one comparisons. Alabama was in a dogfight early in the year, figuring out their quarterback position with South Florida, who ended up being a respectable team in the American Conference. Alabama was one fourth down stop away in the Rose Bowl against Michigan from playing for a national championship. Does that make any sense? Does that make any sense to have a one-score win on the road or not, bad weather or not? Does it make sense that you are struggling with South Florida and then beating Georgia at the end of the year and going to play for a national championship in the college football playoff semifinal? Doesn't make any sense. Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. That's college football sometimes. That's the sort of progression that Oregon and Michigan now have to come up with. Oregon's got to fix the offensive line, and Michigan has to be more explosive on offense. Well, explosive isn't the right word. Let me retract that particular word. They have to be more dynamic on offense. Because 16-10 late in the game, or Oregon 17-14 late in the game against vastly inferior opponents, and again, Oregon's is much worse because it's an FCS opponent. Fresno State is at least a group of 5. Neither one of those fan bases should feel good coming out of week 1. There's a lot to work on. But you know what the good news is? There's a lot of time. The advantage for Oregon, they have Boise State this week, who put up 56 on Georgia Southern, but gave up a lot. Less than 56, but they gave up a lot of points. Michigan, on the other hand, you don't have as much time to fix this because Texas is coming to town. And they looked like a well-oiled machine over the weekend when they took Colorado State and punted them like Jack Black punted Baxter in the first Anchorman movie. You better figure it out quickly. Oregon doesn't have as much time as they think. They've never beaten Boise State, always been a thorn in their side. Boise State's still the preseason favorite and should be to win the Mountain West, and Ashton Genty went for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns in the win over Georgia Southern on Saturday. Then they have to play Oregon State. They have not won at Reser Stadium since 2018. Michigan State and UCLA did not look good. And then Ohio State comes to town. You don't have as much time as you think to get this stuff right. You've only got a handful of chances. But the good news for both these teams is it's early in the year, and the issues that I saw, they're not widespread in that there are just a couple of things that need to be fixed. They're major issues. But it's not like Oregon's defense was terrible. It wasn't. It's not like Michigan's defense was terrible. It wasn't. You have half of the ball solved. You got to fix just a couple of things on the other side of the ball. It's not like the potential isn't there, but you got to find it. And that's what they have to do now as they go throughout the season. College football is so much fun. It's just a great time. Speaking of the Big Ten and teams that could rise up to the top, USC has to be in that mix, obviously. But what about Nebraska? Boy, they look good. They look good. And do we need a new name to add to the G5 playoff mix? We'll see. That's coming up next. Hey, Locked On College Football fans. Want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game I think you're going to love. Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. You recruit, you hire staff, you oversee training camps, and you got to be able to handle the pressure of calling plays because you get to do that as well. Everything you do will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC, completely free, ad-free, 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On College Football fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. So Nebraska looked the part, 40-7, the final score. Spencer, they were playing UTEP. That's a rebuilding Conference USA team under first-year head coach Scotty Walden. Okay, fact check true. The Miners don't have big expectations for this year. But in watching Nebraska football over the years, I can't help but wonder, have they finally turned a corner? Because how many times has Nebraska underperformed? How many times has Nebraska failed to deliver what they are capable of? How many times have they been just short or beat or lost to a team that they should beat? They beat UTEP 40-7. Dylan Raiola over 200 yards, couple touchdowns, no interceptions in the ball game. That is a great sign. That is a great sign. And look, Dylan Raiola will have bigger challenges ahead, to be sure. But to think that Nebraska didn't show something in their first game, it's something. Not everything, but something. We're going to learn a lot more about Nebraska in week 2 because Colorado's coming to town. And last year, when Nebraska went to Colorado, they lost the game 36-14. Jeff Sims was the quarterback. It wasn't pretty. Colorado was better start to finish. Start to finish, Colorado was better. And guess what? Colorado is a better football team than they were last year. And so is Nebraska. So is Nebraska. People were commenting about Colorado when I reacted to their game on Thursday night, saying, man, were you watching the same game? Colorado was sloppy. Colorado was the... And I just went, excuse me, hold on. I said Colorado was better than last year. You know why? Because Colorado is better than last year. They looked better against North Dakota State. That doesn't mean I thought they looked like they're ready to go 12-0, run the Big 12, and go to the college football playoff, because they are not. But last year they were a 4-8 football team after a hot start in the non-conference slate. And, well, Colorado State wasn't a great performance. But TCU, Nebraska, those were legit wins. On the road, at home, great performances. What exactly does better mean to you? Because to me it means you're not as bad as you were last year. And that's what Colorado is going to be. So if you have a team that is capable of making a bowl game, that's going to be a legitimate test. Now, Nebraska is 6.5, 7-point favorite roughly in this game. That number could be a little bit too high. I'll have my official prediction later in the week, but we're going to learn about Nebraska, who I have pretty high hopes for coming into the season. Not as a playoff team, not as a Big Ten dark horse contender, but they have a favorable schedule. They have a good defense with a great defensive staff, and they have a quarterback who is a mega talent, of course, but he just has to be capable. He just has to be serviceable. And if he is that in his true freshman season, which is how he looked against the Miners, then guess what? Nebraska is going to be a pretty darn good team. But we will learn against Colorado. You can say UTEP is not a legitimate data point because it's a Conference USA team that's rebuilding. Okay, that's fine. I'm just saying I once saw Nebraska lose a game to Georgia Southern. So progress has been made. Again, same discussion like with Colorado. Better than it used to be. But they're not this. I just said better than there used to be. Than they used to be. Because they are. They are. That's how they look to me. That's how they look to me. So, if they're a better team than they were last season, then they're going to get a more legitimate test this year or this week against Colorado. That's going to be a really, really fun game in Lincoln. Crowd's probably going to be on fire. You'll get plenty of attention because it's Colorado, and of course, you will get plenty of attention. But Dylan Raiola is going up against a defense that has a couple playmakers like Travis Hunter or guys along the defensive line. I thought looked much better for Colorado than they did a season ago, but certainly it's a gettable defense. We saw that with North Dakota State, who put up 26 points. But if Nebraska goes out and wins this game, 31-20 or somewhere in that range, I'm not going to do the reverse Colorado and say, oh, see, Colorado wasn't actually any good. No, Colorado's just fine. Nebraska's just a good team. So I think this is a really, really fun matchup going into week 2. I think that Nebraska has the opportunity to showcase that they have exercised some of those demons from the past. Not all of them. Not all of them, because it's still early in the year. You got to play the rest of that schedule out, but it's pretty favorable. If you win this game against Colorado, I'd feel very, very good about the Cornhuskers if I were a Nebraska fan. Flipping gears here, changing gears, shifting gears. That's probably the correct word. The group of 5 is getting a team into the playoff. And when you hear that discussion, you think of Boise State, you think of maybe Fresno State, you think of Tulane, you think of Memphis, you think of UTSA, you might need to be thinking about UNLV. So the Rebels went into Houston, and I thought they'd win the game as a slight underdog to the Cougars, who are in complete and total rebuild mode, could very well go 0-12 this year. That's a realistic possibility when you look at their schedule. UNLV was arguably, along with Rice, who they played in a couple weeks, their most winnable game. And there are other ones that Houston could end up winning. Baylor, don't know if they're great this year. At BYU last week of the regular season. But everybody else, maybe at Cincinnati, but on the road, I don't know. They've got Oklahoma this week. Good luck to the Cougars. But UNLV went into Houston and boat raced Willie Fritz's team. It's not a good situation. It's going to take a couple of years to build Houston into a respectable Big 12 program. Willie Fritz can do it. He just doesn't have the team this year. Still, that's a Big 12 team. That's pretty close to a Big 12 roster. Maybe not as close as they'd like to be. But UNLV went in there out of the Mountain West, ran them out of the building on their home field. Long trip, doesn't matter. Houston to Vegas, probably a pretty easy flight to make, and they made it look easy. And UNLV in this game, they win by a final score 27-7. You know what my number one question was about Houston, or not about Houston, sorry, about UNLV coming into this year? What are you going to get at the quarterback position? Well, turns out they're just going to run the football a bunch. 48 carries for 203 yards for the Rebels in this game. 200 rushing yards. Matthew Sluka started a quarterback. He goes 6 of 13 for 71 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. I don't know how sustainable that is. Can you attempt 13 passes and win a lot of games on your schedule? UNLV plays Utah Tech at home this week. They're not going to have any problem there. That's an FCS opponent. But September 13th, that's not this coming Friday, but next Friday, that's when we will learn. Like, anytime a G5 beats a Power 4 school, it should raise some eyebrows, especially a team like UNLV. That's the preseason number 2 or 3 team to win the Mountain West this year. If they go through their schedule, and they wind up with a 10-2 record, and they appear in the Mountain West Championship game and win said game, you could look at UNLV as a playoff team. Barry Odom has got them cooking right now. They play Kansas next Friday. That's going to be a major test. Played them in the bowl game last year. Kansas won, but Fresno State and Syracuse up after that. Watch for that Syracuse game as well, because that's at home. That is in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium on Friday, October 4th. They play at Oregon State on October 19th. They play Boise State on October 25th. Those are the games that are going to let you know, along with Kansas. So you have a 3 games in a 4-game stretch. They play at at Utah State on Friday, October 11th, sandwiched in there as well. But Syracuse at Oregon State hosts Boise State. If you end up winning 2 or 3 of those games, look out for the Rebels, because I will repeat this from now until the 12-team playoff, just so nobody's surprised and you can't say I didn't warn you, the G5 is getting a team into the college football playoff, and you got to keep UNLV on your radar. See how they play against Kansas next week, and if they're competitive in that game, but lose, but look good doing it, I don't know. Kind of got a schedule that's comparable to the other G5s. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.